Happy Tuesday, everybody. Your boy's back in the booth, and it's the latest edition of your daily source for fantasy hockey news and betting breakdowns. The Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, taking a look at panic button time out west for the Oilers and a top line in Vegas. Absolutely feasting. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back inside the lab to the Tuesday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's short and sweet solo episode with your boy is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Place your first $5 wager and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. What is good, my friends? It's been a little while since a solo episode is dropped with just your boy. Steele's been holding us down the last week or so while he and I have been a little bit busy. However, we're not taking our foot off the gas for fantasy takes. And there is a number of angles that I could go to on today's show, but I'm going to go to these ones. The Oilers, obviously, struggling to start the season. I want to talk about them. Perennial slow starters over the last few seasons, last handful of seasons, it seems. But there are a lot of fantasy GMs invested into a number of pieces on this squad, so I want to talk about it. On the other side of the coin, the Vegas Golden Knights on fire, winning a third straight game. That top line, Barbashev, Stone, and the league leader in points right now, Mr. Jack Eichel, needs to be touched on. I also wrote a little article for Dauber Hockey on Monday that takes a look at some of the top young guns already turning heads in the game. So I got to throw a few names at the board, some obvious ones, some more under the radar ones, but everybody loves a young gun, especially if you can go out there and hit the waiver wire. By the way, if you missed yesterday's waiver wire special, tap into the channel. Make sure you smash that 5-star review and subscribe button on YouTube. Means the world to both Steele and I. Now, the plugs are out of the way. One more, though. Big time bets coming up at the end of the episode. I got 3 picks and my lock of the night. However, let's get into it. This Edmonton Oilers team is still going to be a force to be reckoned with come the end of the season. We know last season's slow start cost Jay Woodcroft his job. Chris Knobloch comes in, takes over, turns the team around. And yeah, Stanley Cup hangovers can be very real. And as much as I'm sure fans in Edmonton don't want to hear that statement one more time, the offense is sputtering, the goaltending is not good enough, and the fact remains, this is a club that's got to get it done to start these seasons. And this is once again a slow start. And take this in. Fantasy GMs, and I'm still not even hating it because they are going to get there sooner than later. I'm going to talk about Connor McDavid in the betting segment at the end of the show. They're going to get there. However, if you're a GM, which I think still is a good angle to consider, that invested heavily in the Edmonton Oilers, you likely are down week 1. Leon Draisaitl, 1 goal, -4 on 5 shots in 3 games. Bouchard, no points, -2, 4 shots on goal in 3 games. Zach Hyman, 0 points, -4, 4 shots on net in 3 games. Those are heavily owned players in all formats, and obviously huge seasons last year for all 3. I got Evan Bouchard on one of my squads. I got lucky that the rest of my team was doing well. I took the week. But when you're looking at all of those guys going in the top 2 rounds, and Stuart Skinner likely to be a goaltender in the top 10 off the board, Stuart Skinner, an .805 save percentage. That's hard to overcome in the first week in terms of head-to-head matchups, but it's also hard to overcome for this Edmonton Oilers group. And when you look at those guys struggling, I think it kind of makes sense that they dropped all 3 games. Losing 4-1 to Calgary is really the salt in the wound, I would say, not only for fans, but for fantasy owners. This is a squad that's allowed 15 goals against so far to begin the year. Most in the NHL. They are also at a goal differential already of -12. Worst in the NHL. They're going to have to turn it around in a hurry. I got panic button time written up there. Obviously, that's a little bit getting ahead of ourselves. I don't think it's panic button time yet. But when you're really looking across the board at special teams, yeah, they did better on the penalty kill against Calgary, but special teams has to get better. Goaltending's got to get better, and there's no offense to speak of. 3 games is 3 games, but you got to come on here, and I got to highlight it, especially when I know, just like myself, there are many fantasy GMs already taking a look at what's going on in Edmonton and waiting for the explosion that we think comes. Actually does just that. So the rest of today's episode, I'm hoping to bring that fire for y'all. I'm going to talk about some young guns that are on my radar, already turning heads and making fantasy impact. Right after the break, I'm going to talk about big time bets at the end of the episode. It's been a while since I've dropped some picks on air. I got a lock pick, I got a prop, and I got a total bet ready to ride. But I also want to talk about the Vegas Golden Knights, because on the other foot, Edmonton 0-3, the Vegas Golden Knights starting out red hot. And I want to focus on that top line for a hot minute. This is the 3rd consecutive season and the 5th in the Vegas Golden Knights history already that they've started the year 3-0. They're the 4th team in NHL history to have a season opening winning streak of at least 3 games in consecutive seasons. And Jack Eichel is red hot, leading the league in points right now. As I record this, 7 points, tops of the table. And I know 1 goal and 6 assists isn't like hand this guy the Art Ross, but it's nice to see. It's nice to see Mark Stone looking fresh. And that combination of Barbashev, Stone, and Eichel is clicking right now. I'm feeling a little bit good myself because I am an Ivan Barbashev supporter and owner. 3 goals, 3 assists for Barbashev, looking very comfortable as the 3rd man on that line. 59% owned on Yahoo, 61% on ESPN, 72% on Fantrax. A little trickier, but he's out there in a lot of formats. I would highly recommend taking a look at Barbashev and this Vegas Golden Knights team while they're kind of cooking right now. What do they do the rest of the season? Again, as much as I'm not going to write off the Edmonton Oilers, I'm not ready to hang anything on the Vegas Golden Knights. But when you're looking as comfortable as they are, maybe they're getting Thomas Hertl starting to go a little bit here, and you win 3 straight games, we're going to pay attention to it. And yeah, Jack Eichel is leading the NHL with 7 points. Wanted to double check that. This is a squad that's strength and hangs its hat in the back end. Very good and balanced blue line that I've come on here with Steele multiple times. By the way, shout out to Steele. Already missed my boy on the 1s and 2s. They are a balanced group. Shea Theodore, Pietrangelo, Noah Hannafin, Nick Hague, McNabb, Zach Whitecloud. Some of those guys don't jump off the page for fantasy, but they insulate the forward group, allowing them, and they're doing it right now, to go off offensively. I got my eyes peeled on this situation because it's going to also mean good things for peripheral pieces. Victor Olofsson's look pretty good. Thomas Hertl gets the game winner, I believe, the other night, or at least I know contributed. So I got to keep my eyes peeled on these situations, both good and bad. That's why I had to throw the Oilers under the bus a little bit there at the start. But I've got confidence. I got confidence in the rest of today's episode. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Steele and I be loving placing our bets at FanDuel, and that's where you should be doing the same, because right now you can kick off the NFL season in style with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page, exactly where you place your bets. You'll get started right now with a $200 bonus bet guaranteed when you place your first $5 wager. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Shout out to the everydayers. Really appreciate all the love, all the feedback for the pod. We do this show, a little selfishly. I try to get a leg up in my own fantasy leagues, but we do this show for you guys. Hit us in the comments. Let us know what you think. Always appreciated. Questions, hit the DMs, Instagram, Twitter. We're on TikTok. Wherever you find your fantasy content, we are there for y'all. Let's talk about some of these young guns. And there's some obvious ones at the top of this list. By the way, if you haven't seen my latest article, tap into my Twitter for my young gun top 10. So there's the obvious ones, right? Dylan Guenther, 5 goals, leading the NHL, absolutely cooking right now for a Utah club. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, the Utah Yeti. that has a number of intriguing young prospects, young talent on the rise. Logan Cooley looking good. Barrett Hayton looking good. We know we like Lawson Krause for the Banger League side of things. Dylan Guenther, already his ownership through the roof in the last couple of days, up to 96% on Fantrax, 76 on ESPN, 64 on Yahoo. So going to be trickier to just go out there and add him given how hot he is and how good that whole team looks. That's going to get trickier and trickier, but he deserves to be on this list of young guns already turning heads. Matt Boldy, I believe he has 2 goals, 3 assists. I think he has 5 points. You know, that blend of size and speed, elite offensive instincts, it's starting to look real good. And I think that breakout, and I know he had a good year last year, but that big stepping out season, that's coming from Matt Boldy now. And then you got to throw in the Lane Hudsons of the world, Connor Bedard, those obvious ones for sure. Turning heads, young players, kind of on the radar, though, and we've heard about him, we know about him. Some of the more under the radar names, though, is where I want to go next. And I got to show some love to the vape god, Troy, massive Columbus Blue Jackets fan. Clearly, it's been a tough season, and we're going to keep things positive. However, Chinakhov, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, all of these guys, I know Marchenko's been around a little while longer, but I'm specifically looking at Chinakhov and Kent Johnson as 2 players that I'm absolutely loving. And look, Chinakhov has had to slide up their roster into the top 6 forward group. I believe right now he is playing on the top line. Yes, he is. He's playing on the top line with Marchenko and Monahan and chipping in. And this is a player that I have spoken about on this show before. I think he's got 4 points already to start this season, and he's showing some very nice chemistry with that forward group. Kent Johnson, just to speak about him for a second, this is a player that was drafted 5th overall only a couple of seasons ago. Hasn't lived up to the hype. Of course, it hasn't been there, but he has the offensive upside. He's a dynamic playmaker. And when you look at their ownership, they're out there in a lot of formats. Chinakhov's not also afraid to chip in on the power play. So I'm looking at both of these players who are going to fly under the radar, who are already chipping in and producing. And those are 2 guys on one team that I think you'll be able to go out there and add nicely for a little bit of an offensive bump, who I do think both of them end up having very solid seasons. Now, there's also a young duo on another team out west that I want to talk about. I will get to bet. Steele will be back. The rest of the week, we'll be breaking down all of the top fantasy news, injury news, anything coming out of the NHL. Monday through Friday, we are here. Make sure you drop that 5-star review. Means the world to both Steele and I. Martin Pospisil, and a little bit more attractively, Connor Zary. He is Connor Zary. I'm going to go with Zary because I just like that one better, but I'll tap in and make sure I get that one tightened up for y'all. Someone hit me in the comments and let me know. First of all, Pospisil, less minutes per night, obviously on that third line in Calgary right now, not getting as much look and love as Connor Zary, but I'm going to tell you that both of these players, just like I did at the start of the year about this Calgary team not being nearly as bad as we think they are, they're undefeated, looking good. Connor Zary, 2 goals, 2 assists, a game winner, 7 shots on net, over 19 minutes of ice time per night, playing on the second line in Calgary. This is a player that was a 24th overall pick that's really starting to look comfortable at the NHL level. He's a young gun, turning heads, already making an impact. And Pospisil is a bit of a deeper cut, but I like the moxie of this player in Martin Pospisil. He mixes it up. He is a player that likes to get into the dirty areas. And again, I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Calgary Flames so far. Small sample size. I'm not going to get overly hyped up. Still should be a team fighting, scrapping for a bubble wild card spot. But when you're taking a look at these guys getting a serious look to establish themselves at the NHL level and creating fantasy value, I got to come on here and I want to talk about them, especially these guys that are flying under the radar. And since I'm going even a deeper cut, Will Cooley on the New York Rangers is making the most out of his 13, 14 minutes and change per night, known for his forechecking, a high motor. He's already chipped in with 3 points. He racks up penalty minutes. He racks up hits. And his role in the New York Rangers lineup is obviously a much more diminished one, given how balanced they are in their top 6 forward group. And he is kind of solidified as a bottom sixer, so minutes might be an issue there. I got to show some love to a good Fern Avenue public school boy. We went to the same public school in Toronto's West End. Shout out to Parkdale one time. Will Cooley, prototypical banger league beauty with a high motor. He just does not quit. Love his style, love his moxie. Another guy who's a young gun on a lower level, turning heads. And of course, I'll end this segment with a player that I've talked about at length, who is still falling into the category of young gun, in my opinion. And even though it's only one game for Lukas Dostal, and it was the San Jose Sharks, a shutout is a shutout. And with Gibson already looking like he was ready to turn this role over to Dostal in some capacity, the injury to start the year is giving this kid the final and real audition for this role that he's been waiting for, and I expect him to continue to make the most of it. I've been on Lukas Dostal for years now, wrote about him a number of years ago when he was a prospect. He is going to be a good goaltender in this league for a long, long time. If you're uncertain about your goaltending depth and you're out there in a league that someone is sleeping on Dostal, or there's not as many GMs, or for whatever reason he is out there, which by now at this point, I think that's going to be pretty unlikely. For the most part, look, fantasy hockey is for everybody. Not everybody is an expert. Not everybody's got platinum level. Some people are new to the game, and I really do try and come on this show and make it for everybody. The experts, the novices, the in-betweens, fun, educational, and a little bit of bets in 30 minutes. That's what we try and do anyway. Lukas Dostal, if this Ducks team takes a step this season, which we might be a year or two away from that happening, Lukas Dostal's value goes through the roof right now. He's a waiver wire darling. Try and tap into that. Every single Monday, we will have waiver wire specials. End of every single episode, we got betting breakdowns, which is what today's episode is about. Coming up after the break, I got to be talking about my lock of the night, Connor McDavid, and some of my favorite picks. Today's episode is also brought to you by Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare for the better. It's one of our new sponsors, and I got to tell you a little bit about it. Changing healthcare for men by providing you access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provide access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra, and Cialis, and their generics up to 95% cheaper. Start your free online visit at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon. For all the latest on Hims, make sure you're hitting hims.com/lockedon. Products mentioned are chewable, compounded products, not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See the details at the website for important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and, of course, subscription plan. Giddy up, my friends, and back to business. It has been a while since your boy was on here talking about bets, but like I said before the break, betting breakdowns is a cornerstone piece of this show. We do it in the final segment every single episode while the NHL is rolling, and even into the playoffs. Throughout the year, we'll be checking in on futures. We'll be checking in on awards, keeping you guys up to date on everything related to betting as well as fantasy, because they play into each other now more than ever. I've got 3 picks for you tonight. I got a money line bet, I got a total pick, and I got a player prop. I'm going to try and do that every single night to give you a little bit of a wide range of options. So first and foremost, the Vancouver Canucks head across country to play across the continent to play in Florida against Tampa Bay. Number one, Amalie Arena has been a fortress for the Tampa Bay Lightning over the last handful of seasons. A very, very tough barn to play in. And Vancouver is not a very good road team, especially without Demko. Tyler Myers is out. Dakota Joshua still out of the lineup. They have been a team over the last couple of years that has earned the reputation of being one of the best in the Western Conference. Not going to take away from the Vancouver Canucks here. The season is still quite young, and I'm not writing them off, not even close, not yet, but without Demko. And with Shilovs in there, I'm just saying this is not the same team, and just such a disheartening way to start the year without Demko when it really was an up and down offseason of not being sure what's going to happen. Tampa 8-2-0 in their last 10 games against the Vancouver Canucks. I understand that the most recent meeting last year, Vancouver took in neat and tidy fashion. That was in Vancouver. This one's in Tampa Bay. I'm playing into the Beast Mode Bolts at home, that angle, and their historical dominance against Vancouver. So I'll spit it out. First pick, Bolts on the money line, minus 135, getting a pretty good price. That's the first pick. Second pick, the San Jose Sharks are an improved team. Macklin Celebrini's already had to deal with a couple of injuries, but he's also producing. The Dallas Stars are a powerhouse. They are one of the best teams in the NHL who will be heard from before this season is out in some capacity in terms of knocking on the door as one of the last groups standing for Lord Stanley. Starting off the year red hot, 3-0 to open up the season. And I think I'm looking at this situation as, yeah, I obviously want to hammer the Dallas Stars on the puck line or something like that. But my first instinct was to actually go to the total because this Dallas Stars team is stingy. They've only allowed 3 goals against through 3 games. Obviously looking good with Jake Ottinger in the cage. They also got Casey DeSmith, got a win for them the other day, their new backup goaltender. So when I look into the matchup between San Jose and the Dallas Stars, it's basically an even split. Their last 10 games head-to-head, 5 going over the number, 4 going under the number. It's very close, but this one's going to go under the total. I think it's got under written all over it. So I'm going to take it at 6.5 and lay the under in this one. 4-2 Dallas, 4-1 Dallas. That's what I'm seeing here. Maybe an empty netter. So again, maybe lean to the puck line, but I'm loving the under. And here comes the lock of the night. This Edmonton Oilers team, sooner than later, are going to have to turn it around and turn it around in more than just a short-term thing. This team has all the tools. Speaking of the Dallas Stars, I could just see it being those 2 teams at the end in the Western Conference. Not a bold take whatsoever. Connor McDavid has 2 points, 2 assists through 3 games, only 8 shots on net. What we've seen from him, at least over the last 3 seasons, was him really shooting the puck much more. And I know last year it dipped off to 263, but he has got to fire that biscuit on net a whole lot more. And I think you're going to see a motivated Connor McDavid against the Philadelphia Flyers to get that win, to carry his team, and he is going to shift it into a whole other gear. The pick is Connor McDavid, lock of the night, over 1.5 anytime points. He gets 2 assists, we're money. 1 goal, 1 assist would be nice, we're money. In his career against the Philadelphia Flyers, and you know I like these head-to-head splits, 15 games for McJesus, 11 goals, 20 assists for 31 points, including 3 game winners. I think he takes it to Philly early and often tonight. That's my lock of the night. I'll recap the picks. Bolts at home to the Canucks on the money line, minus 135. I got San Jose at Dallas staying under the number at 6.5 and wrapping it up with my lock of the night. Connor McDavid over 1.5 anytime points. I really, really like that one. I think the Oilers turn it around against the Flyers club on the road. Tough barn to play in as well for the Edmonton Oilers at home. So those are the picks. That's the episode. Shout out to everybody for tuning in for Tuesday's episode with your boy. Happy belated Thanksgiving to all of our Canadians north of the border. Much love. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll be back for Wednesday's Hump Day episode tomorrow, and we'll get this paper all over again.